Welcome to the Deconstructing Data podcast and live stream. I'm Jessie Lezak, CMO at FeedX, along with FeedX's founder and CEO, David Finkelstein. What's new, David?
All good here, Jessie. I'm not used to seeing you sitting outside. Usually every once in a while that's me doing that. So
thankfully in the Midwest, it's finally warmed up a little bit so we can actually sit outside.
Nice.
But yeah, I'm excited for a long weekend. I'll be checking out after this and going off grid. So yeah, you caught me in the middle of nowhere, Kentucky.
Nice. Well, hopefully you'll get some well-deserved rest.
Thank you. Yeah, I'm really looking forward to it. It's always good to get in nature and, as the kids say, touch grass. But I'm excited for a conversation about data before we do that. And today on Deconstructing Data, we are thrilled to welcome on Marcus Mossberger. He's the Chief Marketing Strategy Officer at Lytx. Welcome to the show, Marcus.
Thanks, Jessie. Appreciate it.
Yeah, Marcus, we're happy to have you on the show. And I'd love for you to kick it off for us. Give our viewers and listeners a little background, where you came from. We talked about this a little bit off camera earlier. So I think people will appreciate your story of coming from big company to startup. So I'd love for you to kick it off. Tell us a little bit about that history. What led you to join Lytx and what Lytx is doing today for its customers.
Yeah, happy to. Thank you, David. So I like to tell people I'm a recovering HR practitioner. I've been in the HR technology space for longer than I care to admit, several decades now. Worked for a couple of larger institutions, spent some time with GE Healthcare, spent over a decade with an organization called Infor, a larger kind of ERP organization, but always focused on workplace-related technology. And I have a genuine passion for improving people's lives at work. And I think technology is and is going to play a big role in how humans work in the future. So I've been focused on that for a long time. And late last year, I found a little organization called Lytx. We are a workforce intelligence platform. So our goal is to take data and serve it up to individuals to make better decisions for and about their people. That takes the shape of HR analytics. We really focus on strategic workforce planning, David, something that a lot of organizations don't do today, but they'll need to do in the world of AI. And I'm really excited to be here to talk to both of you.
Very interesting. So tell me what that means. What is strategic workforce? What did you say, strategic workforce?
Strategic workforce planning. Those are three words that a lot of people don't say together very frequently. In fact, according to our friends at Gartner, 86% of organizations don't do it. The idea is pretty simple, David. What are we going to need in 2030 when it comes to our workforce? What kind of people? What kind of skills will they need to have? When we think about AI, what are the AI exposure rates or the vulnerabilities of individuals and positions in our organization today? How many of those roles will be automated away? How many of them will be augmented by AI? And again, what skills will be left that we need to make sure that we have in our organization based on our strategic goals in 2030? So it's about planning for the future.
Very cool. So yeah, that's certainly something that I think you're right. Not enough companies do. I certainly know we don't do it. I have a hard enough time planning for the next 6 months, let alone several years. So, but we have some really interesting topics that we want to talk about today. And so the first one is what data reveals about AI job disruption. So, we were talking a little bit about AI and jobs, but I think that it'd be really interesting to dig into this topic because we know a lot of people are talking about AI and how that's going to affect their job going forward in the future across a wide range of industries. So I'd love to hear what you have to say about this.
Well, I tell you what, we've got some recent news, don't we, David, from our friends at Oracle, where AI was highlighted as a reason behind a very large layoff this week of 20 to 30,000 people, is my understanding. And what they pointed to is, look, we want to spend about $50 billion on AI infrastructure. And so we need to take some money away from headcount and payroll and bring it over here so we can pay for this stuff. Now they expect to see a return on that over time, but the challenge there is it's really short-sighted. It's not thinking through the fact that those 20 to 30,000 people have institutional knowledge and intellectual capital that Oracle's going to need in the future. So they will end up hiring a lot of those people back, David. I'm sure of that. But when we look at the impact of AI on jobs and positions and individuals' employment, personally, David, I think 100% of jobs will be impacted by AI. But you know what? I just saw today from Deloitte, they had a post on LinkedIn, and they suggested that they have yet to find even one job that will be 100% eliminated by AI. So what's going to happen is you're going to see AI is going to automate and augment certain tasks associated with work. And so work is going to change. It's going to change pretty dramatically in some professions. And so we as human beings are going to have to adapt for sure.
Yeah, I think that's interesting. And we talk about that a lot here on the podcast is AI is helping improve the way people do their jobs, right? And it's improving efficiency. But we're firm believers of having a human in the loop, and that people drive results just as much as AI can. And so it's like, it goes hand in hand. And I think that we can optimize a lot of people's jobs with AI, which in itself can generate new growth, which can generate new jobs, right? If it's done right.
Yeah. It's interesting, David. I've been hearing a lot about the human in the loop the last few weeks. It may be because I spent the last 2 weeks in Las Vegas at different workplace technology related events, Unleash and then Transform. And then I went to an innovation summit in Pittsburgh last week where human in the loop was talked about quite frequently too. So when we think about the disruption of AI and how it's changing how human beings work, one of the questions I've brought up to people is whose job is it to actually redesign the work itself? Is it folks in operations? Is it IT because they're the ones being so disruptive by bringing agents and bots into the workforce? Is it HR, where HR has historically been kind of responsible for some of these elements, but not necessarily redesigning the work itself? So I think it's going to end up being a kind of a multidisciplinary approach where you're going to have all of those different stakeholders and constituents involved in the decision-making process of how work changes and evolves over time. But I really do think it's important that we, focus on, again, maintaining that human in the loop and using data to make decisions, but still having that human being make the final decision.
Yeah, absolutely. I've seen that, in our own company. We're using AI in a number of different ways, and all it's doing is really just improving improving processes and freeing up people's time so that they have more time for other things. And quite frankly, it's driving more revenue. And as it helps drive more revenue, it's going to create more jobs, within our own business. So I'm excited to see how it continues to evolve and, how many new jobs are actually created because of AI. A lot of people talk about people losing jobs, but I'm actually thinking more about how many new jobs get created because of it as well.
Yeah, I totally agree. And, I think people have talked about that for a long time, that technology has historically created more jobs than it's destroyed, but it may feel a little bit uneven right now. There's a really good Gartner graph out there right now where they show job loss associated with AI. And then they show job gains associated with AI. And what you see over time is about in 2029 is where they anticipate more jobs being created than lost as a result of AI. So that's the inflection point that they're seeing. But again, those jobs are going to be different and people are going to have to adapt. David, the half-life of skills used to be about 10 years. So you'd go out and get an education or licensure or credential of some sort, and it'd last you about 10 years. It's down to less than 2 years.
Yeah.
And so I think we just have to admit we're going to have to constantly be re-educating ourselves, have that growth mindset so that we can adapt accordingly.
Yeah, we have to constantly be learning. Technology just, happens so fast, it evolves so fast that we're constantly learning. The good thing is AI can teach you a lot of things too. And so I know that myself and a lot of my team members, we've talked about using AI when we want to figure out how to do something. You want to learn how to do something. There's a new software comes out, new technology comes out. Okay, how do we use it? I don't know. Let's ask AI, And, we have multiple different AI tools that we use internally, literally just for educational purposes to help us, to teach us how to do something. Claude's great at that. I love like when I don't know how to do something, I ask Claude how to do it. It'll show me how to do it, and it'll say, here, I'll help you, and it helps me do it,
Yeah, great point. I use ChatGPT for that constantly. What's funny too, though, I saw a guy speak at one of the events I was at last week. I think his name's Ethan Malik. I believe he teaches at Wharton. He says, like, I spent a lot of time with folks at Anthropic and at OpenAI. And it was admittedly a little disconcerting, David, but he's like, none of us really know what's going to happen next and exactly where this is going to go. And it changes like on a daily basis. So those folks that are out there that feel like I get up every day and I feel like I'm behind, you are in good company.
Yeah, 100%. I agree. I'm really wanting to jump into this next topic because Jesse's already put it up, or Canelways put it up. So we have using AI data to reduce layoffs. So this ties into what you were just talking about with Oracle, right? Yeah. I mean, let's explore that. Like, how can companies be using AI to reduce layoffs?
Yeah, I think it starts with using data to make predictions and do some scenario planning and modeling about the future. So if you think about where do we want to be in the next couple of years, and then you evaluate from a people perspective, what kinds of people do we need to be successful in those spaces in the future? What skills will they need to possess? And then what do we have internally today? And how much of that talent could be repositioned? So internal mobility, David, is I think the key to reducing layoffs. So if you've got people that have transferable skills that can be used in a variety of ways, and you've got people that are raising their hands saying, I'd like to do something different, I'd like to learn something new, then matching them up with those opportunities that you anticipate in the future, getting them into training and education programs. We see this in healthcare, right? So we know that there's lots of shortages in terms of labor in the world of healthcare and the nursing space in particular. So you're seeing organizations look at lower level roles, people in environmental services and administrative capacities, and saying, hey, would you be interested in moving into a CNA role and then eventually into a nursing role? We'll pay for your education and licensure and credentials and all of that training that you need, because we want you to move into those roles in the future. So it's about using data to predict what you're going to need and then, responding appropriately. The other piece that we're seeing, we have a partner called Skillfully that's using AI to evaluate skills, because I can tell you, David, listen, I'm really good at this, and this, but that's self-reported. Yeah. And so is that really that accurate? And so they're using AI-driven simulations to actually put me through the paces to see if I can do that job or not. And then when you have that kind of data in your system, you've validated that these individuals actually have those skills. That makes a big difference. So it's the veracity of the data, right?
Yeah, absolutely. I love that. I love what you said about, being able to use AI to sort of, enable companies to hire from within, because hiring process is so expensive. It's like, having an empty seat and then trying to fill that seat can be very costly for a business. And so if you can find somebody internally that, and, have the tools, especially when you're talking about large organizations, to be able to have tools that will enable you to make that hire internally just by moving somebody laterally and then up. I think that's a huge opportunity.
Agreed.
Very cool.
I just put in the comments, veracity. I had to, it looks like someone else was commenting that too. I had to, is it voracity or veracity? I think I saw.
I think it's with an E. There you go.
That with an E, yeah.
Is it true?
That's a good word.
Yeah.
It's a good word. Yeah, I had to Google it. I didn't know that that was a specific data word.
Mhm.
But yeah, the accuracy, truthfulness, and reliability of the data,
There you go.
serving as a critical V in big data. Um, so yeah, interesting. Thank you for sharing that with us.
Uh-huh.
Um, anything more on using AI to reduce layoffs?
Well, again, I think just organizations have to have a much more thoughtful approach to, the people side of the business and understanding how do they develop their workforce in the long run. So they make these short-sighted decisions. And like I said, Oracle is going to wind up hiring back a lot of the people, the thousands of people that they laid off, because they'll realize, gosh, I need that institutional knowledge that they possess that I let walk out the door. So again, I just think I do think internal mobility is going to be the key. I also think maybe being a little bit more flexible about how organizations bring people into the organization. A few years ago, Deloitte came out with a human capital trends report. I think it was in 2025, and they talked about the end of jobs. And they weren't talking about us all losing their jobs. They were saying maybe we shouldn't hire people for jobs. Maybe we should hire people for their skills and abilities, and then we'll move you around in the organization based on where we need you. All work is temporary now. So we'll have this project over here, and then you're going to do this over here. Now, again, that gets outside of traditional ways of working, and people are like, well, then what's my title and what's my position? Well, maybe it's fluid. So again, I think you're going to see some new norms evolve over time in the world of work.
Yeah, it'll be interesting.
Yeah, for sure. AI is changing a lot, and that's just, another one of the things that it's bound to change.
Mm-hmm.
And, sort of as the topic suggests, maybe it'll help reduce layoffs. It'll help people make better decisions. I don't know. I'm a technology optimist. So
I am too, Jesse. I like that.
Yeah.
Yeah, same here. I mean, I don't know if we'll ever end up back in the days where, people spend 30 years at the same company. But, I think that with AI helping evolve people's skills, it certainly can enable them to move around a lot less, and maybe, to your point, Marcus, reduce layoffs and enable companies to retain valuable employees, just moving them into, new positions, giving them the opportunity to learn new skills and expand their capabilities within the company.
Well, and to your point, David, AI enables us to do so many amazing things too. I think you're going to see a lot more what I call portfolio careers. I don't know if you're familiar with the term, but again, some of us that are more tenured may not be as comfortable with this, but I've got two daughters that are 22 and 21, and they may have 2, 3, 4 jobs at the same time, all of them part-time, maybe some of them very temporary in nature. And they might look back and be like, Dad, I can't believe you only had one job. You guys were so risky back then. What if you lost it? Because AI enables us to do so much. In fact, I think amongst the billionaires, they're starting a bet around who's going to start the first unicorn company that only has one employee that's basically using AI to do most of the work for them. So it's definitely changing a lot.
Yeah, I've been following that trend and those discussions, and I don't know, maybe it'll happen, but I think it's I don't know. I'm not totally optimistic, and I don't know that that's necessarily a good thing either.
No doubt.
If that were to happen. But yeah, I mean, my daughter's followed in my trend, and she just a year out of college became an entrepreneur as well. So
wow.
So maybe she'll deal with all of this as an employer instead of an employee.
But you know what? It's funny. I love how we were talking before about how you immediately jumped from school to being an entrepreneur, and that was probably a few years ago. And it was a lot harder for you, but for your daughter, it's a lot easier because she's got access to so many tools and resources that we just didn't have back then.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, today, like when she started, her and her fiance, girlfriend at the time, had started, I was amazed at how much they did on their own. Like I've been mentoring them and meeting with them once a week, but like they're just doing stuff like registering the business and all this stuff. And it's like, oh my, and they got, made contracts and all this stuff that I was like, oh, I thought you'd need my help with that. Okay, I guess not,
Yeah.
and they literally have had AI help them with all of these things. And so it's, to your point, a lot easier to be an entrepreneur today because of all the tools out there and the AI and everything that can sort of help guide you along the way.
Yeah, I was speaking to one of the presenters at one of the events I was at last week, and he was telling me that he has a bunch of agents that he created. And he has an agent that goes out and scours the web for just kind of scraping information that's relevant to his world. And then he has another agent that takes all of that data and aggregates it into categories. And then another agent that starts to actually create some writing that he uses to push out information to people in his ecosystem. He's got a team of like 12 agents that do work for him while he's asleep. That's what we're moving toward.
Yeah. Yeah, it's wild. It's kind of like the Wild West now with AI. Like there's so much you can do, and there's like no limits to it.
Agreed.
Yeah.
Like the AI rush, but not the gold rush, but the AI rush.
That's good.
It is. It's like, when I started my first business, it was in the .com, rush. And so now we have this AI rush where like anybody can do anything if they know how to, sort of use AI and to help them do it.
Mm-hmm.
Well, wasn't there like the AI or the .com bubble or the burst or something like? So hopefully we learned our lesson and we won't repeat history.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. Anyway, well, let's transition into this next topic. So using connected data to navigate AI growth. So talk to us about connected data, Marcus.
Yeah, I will steal shamelessly from another speaker I saw a few weeks ago who said, you cannot collect the dots he said you cannot connect the dots until you've collected the dots. So like the problem that a lot of organizations have today is they've got data all over the place, right? In all these different systems. In many respects, these larger institutions have hundreds of different IT systems. And so one of the challenges is just getting access to the data. Then you got to aggregate it. Then you got to clean it up and make sure that it's accurate. And then you can start, making use of that data. And what we're seeing now is, of course, we want to be able to predict what's going to happen. And then we want to be able to prescribe appropriate actions. But now AI is getting in on that mix. And we're actually using that today to understand how do we actually use AI to make recommendations for us. And then we can evaluate whether or not those are, good recommendations or not. Again, the human being always makes the final decision, but it is remarkable how it's enabling us to aggregate more data than we've ever been able to in the past. And so I think it's going to end up being a huge factor in being able to enable growth in a lot of different industries.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, data silos is a problem we've talked about many times on this podcast because, historically, companies have had data in multiple different silos because they didn't, there wasn't really ways to connect it. And now that there are ways to connect the data, a lot of sort of these older legacy companies are still trying to figure out how to do it. There's a lot of opportunity here for companies that are smaller. There's a lot of tools that make it easy for them to do it, but the bigger you are, the harder it is, right? And so data gets spread out all over the place. And we've had clients that even not super large, like a 30 million a year company that had data on 2 different cloud systems. They had some all of their accounting data was in-house. They had all of this other data that was only on this one person's computer. And it's like, and they were asking us to help them with connecting some of this data together. And it was like, once we discovered where it all was, we were surprised that it was all in these different systems, making it very difficult to do exactly what you said and connect the dots.
Yeah. And the next step of that too, from a people perspective, historically the function and the discipline of HR has not been real data driven. And I say that lovingly, having, spent time in that space, but we've, made decisions based on intuition and gut feel. And we're trying to take a page out of the playbook of the world of finance, right? Where they've always had a lot of structure and rigor and GAAP, right? Generally accepted accounting principles. And so we're trying to create those same kind of metrics and ways of analyzing the data from a people perspective, again, so that we can assign some value to it. So dollarize it, if you will, monetize it. And that, again, helps kind of connect the HRO with the CFO and the CIO that needs to be part of the discussion as well. And so we can make better decisions in general with all of this data that we have.
Yeah, we talk a lot about unifying your data. And so, especially when it comes to customer data, understanding, there's so many different ways that you touch a customer. We had this conversation actually in our podcast last week where it was, we were talking about a specific example where, even in my business, like we have our engineering team working with customers, but because our ticketing system, Jira, is not connected to our accounting system, like they don't know if the customer's actually paid. And if they haven't paid, they shouldn't be working with, and helping them until they know that their, account is in good standing. It's
Right.
Something as simple as that is so important to understand. And that means connecting the dots between all of your customer data.
Yeah, it's interesting too, David. You mentioned the cloud and how what I'm seeing now, and you can see it in Wall Street, the way they're valuing these kind of, older school ERP companies in particular, the stock of Oracle and Workday, they've all suffered the last 6 to 12 months. And it's because we went from on-premise systems to the cloud, and then we got into mobile. And now what you're hearing people ask about is, I want AI native technology. I don't want you bolting AI to old school platforms. And so, again, the way that data structure is established and using it for that, natively to be able to predict and prescribe versus just the old school way of collecting it, it's going to have to change. And again, Wall Street's valuing it that way, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yes, definitely. So this is an interesting conversation on connected data to navigate AI growth. So just getting back to that and to wrap it up, what would be like your actionable advice you would give a small to medium-sized business, Marcus, to, use connected data, get their data connected so that they can navigate this AI growth?
Yeah, it's funny. It's you've seen the pendulum swing from side to side. I'm sure we've been in this space long enough to say everybody's like, that's it. I'm standardizing on one vendor, so I'm going to consolidate all of these vendor relationships into one so that I can simplify my tech stack and my data. And all of that. And then you see the pendulum shift to the other side, like, no, we need these brand new systems, these AI native systems that allow us to do this differently. So we'll cobble them together and we'll figure it out. I think it's going to wind up somewhere in the middle, right? Because we're always going to have a wide variety of tools and systems. We're never going to be able to use one vendor for everything. So you've got to figure that out. You've got to get that right architecture. You've got to, of course, make sure that you are leveraging AI as much as you can and being able to build your technology on these kind of newer, more modern tools. But it's going to be a balancing act. And it's funny, I go back to what Ethan said at the event that I was at. Nobody really knows exactly where the puck is going. And so you're going to have some adaptability and flexibility, both as an individual in the way that you approach your career, and as an organization in the way that you structure your data and structure your technology.
Definitely.
That was a really nebulous answer. I apologize, but I don't know. It's just short answer.
Yeah, I mean, it's, we as an entrepreneur, you learn very quickly how to adapt and evolve. And I think that that's becoming more important in any business now. You have to, not just for entrepreneurs. I mean, it doesn't matter where you are and what kind of business you're in. You need to be able to adapt and evolve a lot more today than ever before in the past.
Yeah, and to do so quickly. So I heard somebody say recently that the price of changing like big systems is going down. The price of waiting is going up. You cannot wait until everything's figured out and, oh, we've got established guidelines and governance structures. You kind of just need to do it and then adapt accordingly.
Yeah, for sure. Absolutely.
Definitely. All right. Well, I'm going to transition us now into tech stack, which is the final topic, something we ask all the guests who come on Deconstructing Data, which is, what are some of your favorite tools in your tech stack that empower you and your team?
Oh, okay. I like that. Well, I tell you what, selfishly, I will point to, we are coming out with some new AI-driven automated strategic workforce planning tools for our organization and for the clients that we serve. And so to be able to make it simple and easy. So for us, it's going to take about 30 days to implement our technology, and then about 30 minutes to actually generate a strategic workforce plan. Again, something that has historically taken months and months of work with lots of people working in Excel spreadsheets. And so the key is using, again, that AI to be able to generate the suggestions based on the parameters that human beings establish in the system. So I'm really excited about seeing where that leads us and our client base here in the next 6 to 12 months.
Oh, that's a good one. I don't think we've heard about that. So what was the name of it?
Well, so it's our own proprietary.
Okay, so
you're strategic workforce plan. Yeah.
Got it. Okay. Well, then we won't ask about that. What about like any of the like new AI tools? There's like, I feel like there's like thousands that come out every day these days. Like,
what makes you tick in your everyday?
It's funny how, isn't it? I don't know if you all are the same, but it feels like once you start using one of them, then you just kind of get used to it. And I have to admit, like ChatGPT is my go-to, that like I spend so much time in now because it knows me, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like, and it indicates that when it gives me answers to things, it'll say, well, I know you asked about this before, so you're probably going in this direction, aren't you? And I appreciate that, because if I now switch, and I do occasionally use Claude and others, then I don't get that same kind of personalization, if you will. Mm-hmm. And so I think that's why it was so important for many of these larger AI tools to get, a lot of users early, because there's that stickiness factor. Mm-hmm. What do you think?
Yeah. I mean, I definitely use Claude more than any of the others. But yeah, to your point, I've trained Claude on all things BDEX.
Okay.
So when I ask it, something I want to do, something relevant to the business, whatever, it comes back and says, well, since you guys do this, and, and it goes on. So it definitely knows me better. But then there's other things, I think I kind of find that like Grok does a little better job of researching online. So if I'm looking for information about how to do something that, that it can find online by analyzing a whole bunch of websites that are doing that thing. Grok does a really good job of that, I think. Mm-hmm. I think ChatGPT does a better job of being more like more social. So like if you're doing social media stuff, it does a really good job with that. So I kind of, although Claude is kind of like my number one, I kind of use some other tools for other things.
And then that's smart.
I use Julius AI for data analysis, because it's pretty awesome for data analysis.
Julius, okay.
Yeah.
Great.
But I love Claude's desktop app, because you can have it control other applications. So it can do stuff. It can go and research all kinds of stuff and then put it into a spreadsheet for you, stuff like that. It can control your browser and stuff like that too. So I kind of like some of those tools, and it writes code for me. So if I want to automate something on my computer, like every time this email comes in, I can literally just drop it into a folder, and then it processes it, does what I want it to do, and
nice,
off it goes. So I kind of like that Claude also for some of the code stuff.
Right.
Yeah, I hear a lot about Claude Code. So it sounds like you're doing some Claude Code now, David.
Yeah, I mean, just like stuff like, it's kind of like stupid stuff, but I mean, like, because we're in the data space, we have to manage opt-outs. And so like we get emails from these random people or random companies that are representing people that are saying, hey, opt me out of your platform. I don't want my data sold. And so it's like I've now automated all of that. So like an email like that comes in, it gets automatically thrown into a folder that Claude wrote some code that runs on my computer that picks that up and then sends it off to our server to process it and sends the person back an email saying, hey, this has been processed. You're out of our system. So it's like, I don't know. I mean, I didn't have to hire somebody to do that. You know what I mean? I just asked Claude to do it for me, and it said, okay, what do you want to do? And I just told it and it did it. So
I like that. And I think that's what makes me optimistic about the future. That's why I have a Hope at Work podcast, because I think what we're going to see is technology is going to take all of these administrative, transactional, manual things that most people don't want to do. And they're going to do that for you. And what that means is we should have more time for this, for us to collaborate and communicate and to show emotional intelligence and maybe empathy from time to time, and to problem solve and use our critical thinking skills together. Yeah. And I really like that. So
until my AI clone takes over and for me.
Absolutely.
We're laughing, but
oh yeah,
better time.
Totally.
I'm just like in the back of my head thinking, well, hopefully you don't get a deep fake, because I just don't think it'll suffice on the live stream. Oh my gosh. Well, this has been a good conversation. In closing, Marcus, would you like to let listeners know how they can find you?
Yeah. Well, first of all, LinkedIn, of course, the main platform. Would love to connect with you all there. I mentioned the Hope at Work podcast. That's on Spotify and Apple as well. Would love to have some new listeners there. I also have workplacehope.com is the site that you can go to. And then Lytx.com is, our kind of workforce intelligence platform. I highly recommend people check that out so that we can get that percentage that Gartner refers to of 85% not doing strategic workforce plans down to something a little bit more reasonable over the next few years.
Yeah, interesting.
Awesome. Sounds good, Marcus. Well, we appreciate you joining us on the show today. It's been a great conversation. I've learned a lot, and I hope our listeners have too.
Thanks, David.
Yes, seriously, this was really valuable. We always love having leaders like you on Deconstructing Data. I'm going to go ahead and close us out with the video. We'll see you backstage. So audience members, we want to invite you to get powered by BDEX. Build authentic connections with your audience and drive unprecedented engagement. So just imagine harnessing the power of AI to craft your audiences that truly resonate with your brand, ensuring that your marketing is hitting the mark every time. We want to bring you closer to those marketing goals, and we're eager to guide you. So just visit BDEX.com. You can click on the Talk to an Expert button and get powered by BDEX. Deconstructing Data is the show that makes data make sense. Every Thursday, David Finkelstein and myself, Jesse Lezak, sit down with industry experts to unpack how data really drives marketing. We do this in plain language anyone can understand. If you want real insights, real conversations, and zero jargon, tune into Deconstructing Data, live on LinkedIn every Thursday at 4:15 p.m. Eastern Time. Go.